Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari.
Tiravanachari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shama Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th Canto, Chapter 12, Text 14. Dravida Prabhu.
Aham Pura Bharato Nama Raja Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha Aradhanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Abhavam Mrigasangad Tatartaha Aham Pura Bhadato Nama Raja Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha Aradhanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Bhavam Mrigasangad Tatartaha Aham Pura Bhadato Nama Raja Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha Aradhanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Bhavam Mrigasangad Tatartaha Aham Pura Bhadato Nama Raja Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha Aradhanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Bhavam Mrigasangad Tatartaha
Aham Pura Bharato Nama Raja Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha Aradhanam Bhagavata Ihamano Mrigo Bhavam Mrigasangha Yamano Aham Pura Bharato Nama Raja Aham Pura Bharato Nama Raja Anyone else from Zoom land would like to chant?
Pura Bharata Nama Raja
Aham Pura Bharato Nama Raja
Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha
Vimukta Drishta Shuta Sangha Bandha
Aradhanam Bhagavata Ihamano
Aradhanam Ihamano
Mrigo Bhavam Mrigo Sangat Dhatta
Mriga Bhavan Mriga Sangha Dhartaha. If you could repeat after me. Aham, I, Pura, formerly in my previous birth. Bharata Nama Raja, a king named Maharaj Bharat. Vimukta, liberated from. Drishta Shruta, by experiencing personally through direct association, or by getting knowledge from the Vedas. Sangabandha, bondage by association. Aradhanam, the worship. Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva, Ihamanaha, always performing. Mriga Bhavam, I became a deer. Mriga Sangat, because of my intimate association with a deer. Hata Artaha, having neglected the regulative principles in the discharge of devotional service. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. In a previous birth, I was known as Maharaj Bharat. I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities through direct experience. And through indirect experience, I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord, but due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer, so much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer. The incident herein described is very significant. In a previous verse, it is stated, Vina Mahat Padarajo Vishakam. One cannot attain perfection without smearing the dust from the lotus feet of an exalted devotee on his head. If one always follows the orders of the spiritual master, there is no question of falling down. As soon as a foolish disciple tries to overtake his spiritual master and becomes ambitious to occupy his post, he immediately falls down. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadan nagagita katopi. If the spiritual master is considered an ordinary man, this disciple surely loses his chance to advance further. Despite a very rigid life in devotional service, Bharat Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. Consequently, he became strongly attached to the deer, and forgetting his spiritual routine, he fell down. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnana Janashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In a previous birth, I was known as Maharaj Bharat. I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities through direct experience. And through indirect experience, I received understanding from the Vedas. I was fully engaged in the service of the Lord. But due to my misfortune, I became very affectionate to a small deer. So much so that I neglected my spiritual duties. Due to my deep affection for the deer, in my next life, I had to accept the body of a deer. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is a very well-known phrase in the United States Declaration of Independence. The pursuit of happiness. The word pursuit, it implies a type of chase, searching. In the olden days, before washing machines manifested, clothes were brought to the river and they were hand washed. And if there was a large load, they would use donkeys to carry the heavy burden. The nature of the donkey is to resist. So what they would do is they would tie a yummy carrot on a stick to the back of its neck. The carrot would be dangling in front of the donkey, and the donkey would take a step forward. This donkey doesn't know that when it takes one step forward, the carrot also takes one step. So in this way, the donkey is tricked into working so hard for such little reward. And after the clothes are washed, they would use the same trickery to get the carrot to the back of the neck, and then the donkey would take it back home. So how does this apply to us? Maya, or the external material energy of Lord Krishna, the all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead, she's enticing us with a carrot in the form of wealth, in the form of followers, or in the form of a beautiful wife. And we are chasing after this like a hamster on a wheel. And Srila Prabhupada, he would often use this phrase, the hard struggle for life in material existence. So what did he mean by struggle? So I looked this up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and it defines struggle as to make forceful or violent efforts to get free of restraint or constriction. And this reminds me of a chokehold. My cousin, he was in the Marines, and he showed us how to properly put someone in a chokehold. Has anyone ever been put on a chokehold? Dharmaraj. It's anyone who has ever experienced a chokehold, it's not a very comfortable position. The blood circulation that goes to the head is cut off, and the person is choked at the same time. So blood and air are restricted, and it can render the person unconscious. And in my previous years, I had to use chokeholds, of course for self-defense. And so to struggle in life and to get free from what? What are those constrictions? We want freedom. We want to be free from disease, but disease is forced upon us. We want to be free from old age, but old age is forced upon us. And ultimately, we want to live forever, but death is forced upon us. In the Mahabharata, Yudhishthira Maharaj was questioned by Yamaraj, his father, and he asked him, what is the most phenomenal thing about this material world? And Yudhishthira Maharaj, he answered, countless creatures are going to the abode of death, but those that remain believe themselves to be immortal. Everyone's thinking they're going to live forever. Padam padam yadvipadam natesham. In this material world, there is danger in every step. I was distributing books in La Jolla, and this guy, he was just walking normally. And he somehow stepped on a little rock, pebble, and he sprained his ankle. So he had to walk back limping. So death is a very touchy subject for many. It's a sensitive subject. Why? Because it's a harsh reminder that one day everything will come to an end. But for the devotees, we have been preparing ourselves for that day. Therefore, we can understand what takes place at the time of death. We simply chant and cry out, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So these are the struggles of material life: birth, disease, old age, and death. These are the conditions we must live by when we take birth in the material world. And we are working very hard just to maintain our security and sanity. And sometimes a person will work 2 full-time jobs just to maintain the image that he wants people to portray him as. And it is common nowadays that people hire a stranger to take care of their kids, to raise them. And so I was in La Jolla Cove, and there was this little girl. She looked very different from the person that she was with. And the little girl, she was crying, and she said, you yelled at me. My mom never yelled at me. See? So then when they grow up, they adapt to a whole different way of living other than that of the parents. And so much work is put into keeping this superficial lifestyle, the rich and the famous. The amount of time they spend on putting on makeup, what outfits to wear, so much anxiety just to display this false ego. For example, selfies. They would only show a small glimpse of their life. They will not show the world the troubles they are having. And I distribute books in nice places that are, you can say, attracts tourists, like Balboa Park and La Jolla Cove. And I would often see couples taking pictures. Their relationship to the public may appear that they are happy, happily ever after. But the sad truth is they have arguments, they have misunderstandings, and sometimes there is mental and physical abuse, but they never show this to the public. They post pictures of places they've been to, people they associate with, and what type of new material asset they have just purchased. And it's very materialistic and unnatural. And when someone who has been put through enough difficulties in life, that fortunate soul may start searching out for spiritual association. Can you imagine someone searching out for the answers to life and not being able to find them? Why am I here? What am I supposed to accomplish? Why is there so much suffering in the world? Who am I? Why do I have to die? And what happens when death comes? A thoughtful person will contemplate on these serious subject matters. Because after all, at the time of death, we cannot bring our wealth, we can't bring our home, we can't bring our cars, we can't bring our family members. We can't even keep these bodies that we are so attached to. So these are relevant questions, and someone who has half of a brain will ask. So this is an interesting story. I was distributing books in the Japanese Friendship Garden in La Jolla, in Balboa Park. And you would see, different groups sometimes. So it was just 5 people group, and they were Christian. They would give pamphlets and talk to people. And one of them, his name was Derek. The eldest one, he came to my table, and he was pretty much harassing me, And Derek, he said he was unsatisfied or dissatisfied with the behavior of his colleagues. The way they would approach people, if they haven't accepted Jesus Christ as their Savior, they are condemned to eternity in hell. So he didn't like that. And he especially did not like the hypocrisy in his church. His friends would be working in places that make machines that hurt people. And when they were at church, they would talk about helping others, the contradictions. So a few days later, he came to my table by himself, and he specifically wanted the Bhagavad Gita. So I asked him, what made you choose the Bhagavad Gita among these other books? And he said, he thought about what I said to the other man. So the elder one, his name was Jerry. And so I told Jerry, we're all children of God. Whether one is Muslim, Jew, or even atheist, even an ant is a child of God, because there is a soul in that ant. And when he heard this, it was very profound to him. He understood that that's the truth, And I told him there is always more to learn about God and the soul, and he accepted it. He first gave me $30, And then, so we were talking for a little bit. And then he walked away, and he was reading the books. And then on his way back, I didn't catch his name. So I said, excuse me, sir, what's your name? So he said, Derek. So he came to my table, and he gave an extra $50. So I asked him, what's this for? And he said, I would like to give this to you. And he admitted, I have nothing better to use this money on. He knew it. And he said, I appreciate what you are trying to do. So I invited him to attend Bhagavad Gita class, and he actually came. You guys remember him? Derek? Raj, you remember him? Yeah. So he came, and he was able to hear the holy names. And I also invited him to the Krishna lounge, but I didn't see him last night. And he has been in and out of different jobs, and he could not find one that would least likely to cause harm to others. So I suggested, what about becoming a monk? He laughed, and he said, yeah, I was also thinking about that. So he left with a very good impression. So what we are doing in this Krishna conscious movement is actually worth something, and it has profound effects on people. But unfortunately, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says the people of this age are also very lazy, not only materially, but in the matter of self-realization. The human life is specially meant for self-realization. People are lost. They're wandering around looking for shelter, looking for something to keep themselves occupied with. And a person should reflect, am I really happy where I'm at in life? And whatever little flickering of so-called enjoyment they find is actually a quick relief from their suffering. And Srila Prabhupada would use this example. A king, he would sometimes punish a criminal by submerging him in water. And then when he's about to pass out, he raises him for air. And when he has enough air, he again puts him in the water. So that position is like the people in this age. They work so hard for this little piece of paper day and night. And what do they use it for? They use it to pay mortgage, car payments, etc. And sometimes they get a little sense gratification, and they call that happiness. I was distributing books, and I tell people, these books will help you to be free from stress, anger, anxiety. And someone who is truthful will respond, yes, I do need that. Stress, anxiety, depression, loneliness, these are keywords to use. And on the weekends, they intentionally ruin their brains, their bodies, and sink themselves further into misery. But they are thinking, no, I am okay in life, I'm happy. So there's a statement that I really like. It says, people spend money they don't have to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. Let me read that again. People spend money that they don't have to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't like. So this idea of spending money that we don't actually have, when we want something, but we don't have the resources, what do? Credit cards and loans. Borrow. So they become obligated to pay back what they borrowed from the bank. So they're forced to work. And a lot of people, they're not satisfied with their job. When I go on book distribution, when I see people puffed up, I ask them, are you happy? And they'll tell me, I'm very happy. So I ask them, what do you do? And they tell me, I'm this. So I tell them, let me ask you this. Would you work for free? And you can see their face change. So they're not happy. So this is when I can try to present an alternative to living. Get high naturally, right? And to buy things they don't need. There are so many useless junk in the world, and people are thinking they need them. Do you really need to update your car? Do you really need to upgrade your phone? Do you really need a new house? Do you really need that cup of coffee or new clothes? The truth is that we don't need them. And to impress people we don't like. Why are people spending hundreds and thousands of dollars for a brand new house? It's to make their neighbor envious. Or to make the person in high school that rejected you at the school dance, that they made a mistake by not accepting you. Revenge. It's very pity. And to show that I'm doing better than you. To show my family and relatives that I'm successful. By having this in my life, I'm in a superior position. And it's very sad if someone who is in this mindset, and they go on throughout life chasing these as the goal of life. The youth waste their health to get wealth, and the old waste their wealth to get health. With so much energy in life, a young person wants to enjoy. And they begin to think of ways how to achieve that end. So they want to go to a prestige college, they want to get that dream career, and then finally making those big bucks, right? And this begins that vicious cycle of working and worrying. By the time they reach that goal, they ask themselves, where did my life go? I used to work at a retirement home, and a lot of these residents, they're full of regrets, I never had time to spend with my family. It's full of regrets. And for someone who has achieved wealth, they are usually in old age. And they want to rewind time and go back. They understand that actual wealth is health. And unfortunately, all the wealth in the world cannot buy even a second of time. So we should understand that whatever time we have left, we should spend it on something that has eternal value. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, the sages, they say, O learned one, in this iron age of Kali, men almost always have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. In Kali Yuga, the duration of life is shortened not so much because of insufficient food, but because of irregular habits. By keeping regular habits and eating simple food, any man can maintain his health. Eating simple food. Everyone that I speak to agrees that a simple lifestyle is the ideal way to live. And irregular habits, such as staying up all night, drinking alcohol, smoking, and a small cubicle workspace, these are not natural. I remember in my younger years, I used to think that was the goal of life, to be in a cubicle, to wear a suit, to have a suitcase, People would look at me like, wow, But right now, it's just, I don't want anything to do with it. And before electricity, the people would naturally understand it's time to go to sleep when the sun is down. But now with electricity, people are so bored that they need to go out late at night. And after partying, what do? They sleep in. Maharaj, he always gives this example. He comes here before 3 o'clock every morning. And when he's leaving, that's when the people start sleeping. They want the first portion of their day spent sleeping or recovering from a hangover. So this is considered happiness in the mode of passion and ignorance. When the subject of God is brought up, there are many misconceptions. There are some that believe they are God. There are some that believe there is no God. Some believe that God is formless. He is the light of the universe. And there are some that believe they are God, but they have forgotten they are God. There are some who prefer not to speak about God or religion. And there are some who believe we are all God. Srila Prabhupada, he says human life begins when he accepts religion. And on book distribution, I would ask people, who are you? And more than 4 times people have told me, I am God. So I asked them what Vijay asked him. If you are God, can you read my mind? A simple test. What will happen in the next 10 minutes? They can't answer these simple questions. And Srila Prabhupada would say, if he says he is God, he is dog. Yeah. But Krishna, in the 7th chapter, he says, Vedaham samatitani vartmanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu veda nakashchana. So Krishna, he is saying, O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. So this is Krishna, this is God. Because Krishna is the super soul within everyone's heart. People are trying to take the position of Krishna. Therefore, we're here in the material world. We want to be the supreme enjoyer. We want to be the attention in the universe. And people, when we receive information, or the person who we receive information from is very important. In the ashram, we have no TVs. Why? Because 99% of the media are advertising and misleading people from the truth. And people are taking the internet very seriously. Whatever they read or whatever they hear from people who are not self-realized, they accept their words as truth. Then they pass along this false message to others. And there's another idea that we will know the absolute truth by our own endeavors. What do we know? Because there are 4 defects in human society. We have imperfect senses, we are illusioned, we make mistakes, and we have the propensity to cheat others. Our mind and senses are imperfect. So if anyone starts their argument with, I think, I believe, in my opinion, we should immediately stop them, because what is the value of speculation? There is no authority behind their statement. And we have been reading that what we do, we don't take the mind seriously. It accepts, it rejects, it laments, it hankers, so the mind should not be trusted. So these people write books and give advice to others, but they're actually cheating the public. They pose themselves as very learned. I meet a lot of people that are like that, They're telling me their opinion, and I told them, sorry, sir, I can't accept that. So I told them, just like in the court of law, when you go before a judge and you want to present your argument, you must quote law books. So if you say, I think it, I believe, the judge will not take you seriously. So we quote Shastra. And so Jadabhara is telling King Rahugana of his fall down from an exalted position. He became too much attached to a fawn. The thoughts and actions we make in this life prepares us for the next. And this is the science of transmigration of the soul. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajat yanti kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya siddhatad bhavam bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. I was out on book distribution and I showed this verse to a man, and he didn't believe in karma and reincarnation. So I used the example that Srila Prabhupada uses. A child may argue because of poor fund of knowledge. He will argue that he will not grow old. Right? I'm not going to grow old. But the parents who have direct experience with aging will tell the child that you will grow old. So no matter how much the child may argue, it doesn't change the fact that he will grow old. So similarly, many people may not believe in karma or reincarnation or have their own mental concoctions and speculations, but that will not affect how the laws of karma works. Krishna has clearly explained everything in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a nice story that I would like to tell. There was a water bug in a pond. And this water bug, they would see something phenomenal happen. When one of their friends would climb up this lily stalk, they would never see them again. They would disappear. So one day, this brave little water bug told his friends, if I ever go up, I'll tell you what happens. So one day, the brave little water bug climbed up the lily stalk. When he climbed up, and he was above waters, he grew wings. He became a dragonfly. So I started soaring and roaming. I had a lot of freedom. And at that time, he realized I made a promise to my friends, right? I should go back and tell them. But on his way down, he had 3 realizations. One is that even if he were to go back, his friends wouldn't recognize him. He's a whole new person. The second realization is that he can no longer go in the water due to a different form that he has. And the third one is why should he go back, right? Why would you be stuck in the waters when you can fly? And so this represents that those that are taking Krishna consciousness seriously, there is a change of heart. We become a whole different people. Like I always say, my old friends, I no longer associate with them. We don't even have anything in common. So we should take Krishna consciousness very seriously, and we should endeavor to reach the ultimate goal, which is to go back home, back to Godhead, and be with Krishna. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you for your attention. Is there any questions, comments, reflections?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Hare Krishna.
I have a comment. Hold on, Vijay.
Yes?
Yes.
We welcome cogent, concise questions from anybody. But we welcome cogent and concise comments from initiated devotees. And that's the ground rules. You have.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful stories you shared. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that Bharat Maharaj did not consult with his spiritual master before associating with the deer. But naturally, his spiritual master was not in his physical proximity. He left the forest. He left for the forest to disentangle himself because of the teachings he has absorbed from his spiritual master. But now in this situation, his spiritual master is not around him to advise him. So how does one take consultation from the spiritual master, especially in critical situations when they're not around them?
Okay, thank you for that very nice question. I remember the devotees are saying this is the cause of his fall down. He didn't have any association. Dravida Prabhu maybe can elaborate on that.
Well, I just wanted to make a little amendment to his quote from the purport because I just checked it. and this is very cogent to the answer. Bharat Maharaj did not consult a spiritual master when he became overly attached to a deer. So that indicates that, of course, Diksha Guru was one, and he wasn't in any proximity. But the real problem was that he had no association with other devotees. And we should always remember that there are Diksha and Shiksha Gurus. So someone who's more experienced or who had good advice, he could associate, oh, watch out, you're getting too attached to that deer. You know, anyone can tell you that. And so he didn't have any association. So here Prabhupada says he didn't consult a spiritual master. So it doesn't necessarily mean because he was far from a Diksha Guru. The problem was he was all alone, and he had just his mind. And even though he was so advanced, he allowed the attachment to grow, and it created havoc in the spiritual life.
So in the translation, Prabhu, he says, I attain perfection by becoming completely detached from material activities through direct experience, and through indirect experience I received understanding from the Vedas. What does it mean, like when he says like by indirect experience, he hears from authorities or?
So his father was Rishabhadev, right? And Rishabhadev was an incarnation of Krishna. So he received that, and through indirect, he understood through the Vedas.
So indirect indirect experience means like how else? Like
Studying on his own, I guess, or the Veda Prabhu.
So, just like we can read so many stories, pastimes in the books of Srila Prabhupada, and we can learn so much from that. Even so many accounts that Govardhana Prabhu give the book distribution accounts, we learn from that. But that's indirect. We're not there out in the park exactly. You see that? So actually, a large percentage of our lessons that we get are indirect because we're getting them from the Shastra. But if at the same time we can also have direct experience that confirms that, and like that. So that's what he said. I attained perfection by becoming completely attached from material activities through direct experience. So this was what he directly experienced by his austerities and by his practices. But he, at the same time, he received so much understanding, philosophical understanding from reading the Vedas, and this was indirect because it's coming through the words, and it's coming through the accounts that he finds in the Vedas, which we also have access to.
Also, he had
Go ahead.
he had practical direct experience. He had this experience of becoming attached to this fawn, and it completely messed up his life. He had to take birth again, the fawn and that Bharat, and so he had real direct experience of becoming too attached to a material thing and disturbing completely his devotional life.
Yeah, so just one more on that. He had, I attained perfection by becoming completely detached from material activity through direct experience. And I attained imperfection by becoming completely attached by direct experience. The problem is that he didn't, at the point when he was becoming attached, he wasn't able to access or refer to his understanding from the Vedas. He allowed his emotions to overtake his intelligence and his understanding. It's a good lesson.
Thank you. Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu, thank you very much. From the translation, I get that Jadabharata became unfortunate because he did go for neglecting his spiritual duties. So my question is, why is it that if I neglect my spiritual duties, I become unfortunate?
Okay. So I heard this saying, maybe the devotees can, do not give up the permanent for the temporary, or you lose both. So whatever material activity we do, it produces a temporary result. And whatever spiritual activity we do that has eternal benefit to it. So if one neglects spiritual activity for material activities, it's actually causing him a lot of, you can say, setback from advancing further. And so spiritual activities are actually more important than material duties. Okay.
Okay, Prabhu, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna.
You're welcome.
Okay, today's Ekadashi, and our Bhakta Tyler is cooking breakfast. So we'll see what's...
I have a very sad news from Mayapur Dham. So I think David Prabhu knows Bhakta Sunil. He fixed all the temple hall tiles. He's donated so much money and did so much seva. He left his body today in the Ekadashi in Mayapur Dham.
Who is it, Tapas?
Bhakta Sunil, he was a brahmachari in our temple.
Okay, thank you.
And his initiated name was Satyavak Prabhu, and his Guru Maharaj was Bhakti Vikasai Maharaj. He was very sick, and devotees wanted to take him to from Mayapur to Kolkata, but he chose to stay in Dham and left his body today.
Okay. Thank you for that update, Tapas. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.